Hi all. Let's do some Docker and Ubuntu. I have this notepad file that I like to follow, so I stay on track. There's 26 items. Some of the items are just one command and some are major sections. Okay, so first, you don't have to write down the commands. If you go to this link, you can download this text file. Here's that link, and here's the text file. You can right click and go open in new tab, and here's the text file. Or you can right click and go save link as, point it to your desktop and save it to your desktop. Okay, so that's this file here. So then you just open it as a normal notepad file. Okay, so first we'll go to the Docker website. You can create a free account on the Docker website. Simple account, just username, password. Here's the Docker website, just docker.com. I already have an account, so when I click sign in, it'll just sign me in. And it automatically brought me to the Docker hub. See, here it says hub.docker.com. That's a popular area. Okay, so next we'll download and install the Docker desktop. There's different versions of Docker, but if you're just getting started, best place to start is the Docker desktop. So here we're back on the main page, docker.com. We have these menus here at the top. If you go to products, the first one is Docker desktop. Here's the Docker desktop web page. Here's Docker desktop. You can click here. You can see there's different versions: Windows, Mac, Linux. And then if you click the down arrow here, you'll see there's a stable and an edge version. Stable is the one that I usually go with. Edge would be like the cutting edge features. Edge version is cool, but I usually go with the stable version because I might be trying to get a command to work, and I don't want to be fighting with a command, and it might not work yet in the Edge version. So I usually go with the stable version. Okay, so I'll click here to download the Docker desktop. And you can see here it's going to download Docker Desktop Installer. So I'll click Save, point it to my desktop, and click Save. Downloading the installer should only take a minute or two. What's going on here is back in the old days, we would download software right from a website, but sometimes it would crash. then you'd have to start all over. It wouldn't work right. Something didn't download correct. So what they started doing was you would download an installer. That's just a small piece of software. Then you would click on the installer, and the installer goes to the website or goes to the company's server and downloads the software, and it checks the download, make sure everything downloads correctly. Okay, so here's the Docker installer. I already have Docker installed, but I can go ahead and click on this to show you how it works. Okay, so the installer is running. It's downloading Docker Desktop. It downloads it and installs it. Okay, so the installer can tell that I already have the current version of Docker installed. So I can go ahead and close this. We don't need the installer anymore, so we can trash that. After you install Docker, you get an icon on your desktop, and you get an item on your start menu. Those two I don't really use that much. But if you come over to your notification area, you get a little Docker icon in your notification area. That's supposed to look like a whale. And you can see if I hover, it says Docker Desktop is running. Now if I right click the whale, I get this menu here. And this is the one that I use quite a bit. Mainly this one here, switch to Windows containers, or we can switch to Linux containers. We'll talk about that here in a bit. Okay, so just to follow my notepad file here, download and install the free Docker Desktop. Easy install, just click the installer. No configuration needed. After you install it, it's ready to go. Back in the old days, sometimes if you would download something, you'd have to go in and type in some numbers or do some type of configuration, but with Docker Desktop, it's ready to go. Okay, so we talked about Docker on the start menu, talked about the Docker whale in the notification area. The main item would be the switch to. That's the one that I seem to use a lot. And there's two types of containers. Docker is based on using containers. There's Windows containers and there's Linux containers. So here, let's go back here. And here it says switch to Windows containers. So this is kind of confusing. So currently we're using Linux containers. We can tell that because it says switch to Windows. Okay, it would probably make more sense if this said you are currently using Linux containers, right? So just to show you how this works, I'll go ahead and click this. So it says switch to Windows containers. You are about to switch to Windows containers. Existing containers will continue to run, but you will not be able to manage them until you switch back to Linux containers. No data will be lost otherwise. So yes, switch. Then if I come back here, right click the whale, it says switch to Linux containers, which means we're currently using Windows containers. Okay. Sometimes when you switch and you hover over the whale, it says Docker is switching. Sometimes it might take a little while to switch. Seems to be a lot faster than it used to be, but once in a while you might still bump into that. So this area here, this is just a quick rundown of what Docker does and how we use it. So with Docker, we download pre-built images. Okay, that's just small files from the Docker hub. That's the hub is on the Docker website. So when we download an image, that's called pull. We pull it down from the Docker hub, from the Docker website to our computer. We pull it from the Docker hub. See if we go back here, see if we go back to the Docker website, go under products, right here is the Docker hub. And then you can also get to it from the menu. This is a link to the Docker hub. So we'll use that a lot during this video. You can download images from other websites too, like Microsoft, but it's best to stick with the bigger company websites because you don't want to download an image that might have viruses or Trojans and might damage your computer. We then use Docker to execute the images. We run the image. Okay, so first we use Docker to pull the image, save it to our computer. Then we use Docker to run the image. The image usually contains an operating system and an app. Okay, so the operating system, Linux or Microsoft Server. When we run an image, Docker uses the image to create a container. So that's probably the main gist of this whole video. When we run an image, we create a container. The container, by convention, usually only does one job, the app. Okay, so in an image, we have an operating system and an app. Or we could have an operating system and an app. Okay, so after we download Docker, what do we do with it? We use Docker through the command prompt. So I have a link to it here. So that's the old-fashioned DOS prompt. They call it a command prompt. You can get to it through your start menu. Go down to Windows, System, and it's the first one here, command prompt. Okay. Here we'll run Docker version. This is just a simple command to help get us going. So here we're saying run Docker and show me the version, -v. So our version is 19. And then here's another version. Two ways to do the same thing. Docker version. Okay. So this -v and -- version, those are called switches. Those are real common in Linux. So this This -V type of switch, that's kind of a Linux and a Unix type of switch, where this -- version, the whole word, that's more of a Java type of switch. But when you first get started, that type of thing is confusing. Like, well, which one do I use? Do I use this one or do I use this one? In general, it really doesn't matter. I think what they're doing here, they're trying to please both worlds. Like, if you're used to Linux, then you might run this command. If you're more into like a Java type thing, then this type of switch may be more comfortable for you to run. But it's really just a personal preference. Here's another simple command, docker -h, -h for help. This just gives us a list of commands that we can run. Don't try to learn these all in one day. That's not why I'm showing you this. Here we ran docker -h, and the first line says flag shorthand -h has been deprecated. Please use --help. So this deprecated thing means it's being phased out. So -h has been deprecated. They're going to take it out of the program. That's real common in the computer world. Things are always coming and going. When things are taken out of a system, they call it deprecated. But it may be years before they actually take it out. 5, 10 years. They give people a long time to switch over to the new way of doing things. It's not like they're going to pull it out this week. So we can run docker --help. Let's clear the screen. And that does the same thing. You can use the arrow keys up and down to run through the history file of commands. The history file of commands that you run, so you don't always have to type in the same command. This command here, this is just a neat little command to save the help file. So just so you know what's going on here, we're saying run the help file and then send it to this notepad file. The notepad file is on my C drive in the Docker folder. Okay. So I thought you might like this because then you could look through the list without always having to run Docker. Okay, so no output means it worked. If it didn't work right, we'd get an error message here. So if we go back to C:, go into our Docker folder, here's the help file. And here's the contents of that help command. That's also on that website where you can download the notepad file. Okay, so when you install Docker, it automatically creates a repository on your computer. When you download an image, the images go to your repository. So we're currently using Windows containers, right? Here it says switch to Linux. So in my Windows containers, in my Windows repository, I have these two images. Let's switch to Linux containers. Yes, switch. Okay, so now we're using Linux containers. Let's run the same Docker images command. In my repository for Linux images, I don't have anything. It's empty. Okay, so I have two Windows images here. I have no Linux images here. I deleted my Linux images before I did the video so I could show you that it is empty. Okay, clear the screen we talked about. Clearing the screen isn't mandatory. Lots of people just let the screen fill up and they're always working down here at the bottom. But I like to clear the screen a lot because then I'm always working here at the top, and something prints out, I can see what's going on. So that's just a personal preference. Okay, so here, switch container type to Linux. That's what we just did. So switch to Windows means we're using Linux containers. Okay, so Docker menu whale in the notification area, switch to Linux containers. We're in Linux containers. Okay, so to get started, let's run a starter image called Hello World. As a starter image, Docker offers a Hello World image. When you learn a new language, that's common. They always, by tradition, they run a Hello World program. Mainly they're kind of neat just to see how the system works, just to see how the new program works. But it's also a good check to make sure that your new program that you just installed is actually working. Okay, so let's pull the image and then we'll run the Hello World image. Okay, so I already have the command here to pull the image, but I want to show you where it's at on the Docker website. Okay, so here we're on Docker website. If we go to products, Docker Hub, and then we can click on here to go to the actual hub. And this is what we're looking for here. These are the common images. These are the popular ones. Here's some more here. And then down here where it says see all official images, this is where I usually go to. So we'll click on this. And then we're looking at this page here. So this is the Docker Hub. Each one of these items is an image. Okay, and there's many of them. We go down the bottom of the page here, you can see there's many pages of images. About halfway down the page here, here's the Hello World image. Okay, so we'll click on this area, and here's the Hello World web page. This is just a sample printout of what the Hello World image does. Just prints out some text. Always be aware of the license at the bottom of the page, especially if you're running these for work. Here's the main thing. This is the link to pull the image, to download it. You can select it and copy it, Or if you click on this icon, it automatically copies the image to your clipboard. So I clicked it, and you can see it says pull command copied. Okay, so just to follow my notepad file here, first we'll run Docker images. I just want to show you that it's empty. And then we'll run the pull command. We're going to download the Hello World image from the Docker Hub. It automatically knows where to go to the Docker Hub. Okay, so it can tell I've already downloaded it earlier, so it came down pretty quick. Now if we run Docker images again, you can see I have one image in my repository, and that's the Hello World image. I'm going through this pretty quick because most of the stuff you kind of don't have to worry about. But I have a Docker course that I'm putting together for Udemy where I go into a lot more detail. I talk about every little thing, especially for beginners. I might skim over some fancy topic here that most people in the computers would understand what I'm saying. But if you're new to computers, I put together the Udemy course where every technical word that I bump into, I always fully explain it, which made the Docker course really big. It's like 400 slides, 400 PowerPoint slides. So I'll try to get that recorded and up on Udemy probably within a month or so. Okay, so now that we've downloaded Hello World, now we'll run the image. Docker run Hello World. And you can see all it does is prints out this text message. You can tell it's a Linux image because it's giving you tips on Ubuntu. What else can you do with Ubuntu? Okay. Something that you might want to do, sometimes your repository fills up. You know, you've downloaded a lot of images and you'd like to get rid of some that you're not using. You can delete them. You can use the image ID here. So I'll select that, then I'll click on the icon here, go edit and copy. That'll copy that number. And then we can delete it here. So we run Docker remove image, RMI, remove image, and then we force it with the switch -F, and then we give it the image ID. Okay, so Docker remove image. For some reason they've got it set up to where you have to use the force, and you give it the image ID. Here, we'll run it without the -F first, and you can see error. It won't delete it. If we run it with the -F for force, then it deletes it. We can run Docker images again and see that it's gone. Sometimes when you try to delete an image, it won't delete because the container is still running. So what you have to do is run a container stop on the container ID. And then come back and run the remove image command. We'll talk about that more later on.